Hello and welcome to the Hard Questions. I'm Solomon Serwanja. On this episode, I host a celebrated politician of our times. She's also the national coordinator for the Alliance for National Transformation political party. The Honorable Alice Alaso is also a former member of parliament for Sorority District and Serere District. Until recently, she also stood for the Serere County by-election in which she lost, but nevertheless, she's a celebrated politician. So we thought that we could bring her on the show to put perspective to what's happening. The Honorable Alice Alaso, thank you so much for accepting to be on the Hard Questions. And I am humbled, especially having covered you for all this time when I was reporting from Parliament. I think you're one person I really, really admired, someone who sacrificed her heart out to serve as Ugandan. So it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, Solomon. It's indeed a privilege to be here. I'm very grateful that you invited me, and I'm looking forward to this engagement.
Yeah. So there's just this moments that I remember some time when I used to see you. You used to chair committees. I think it was PAC at the time.
Yes, PAC at some point.
Yes, and then you would leave Parliament, the committees, then go back to Parliament directly, and you don't have lunch. And I was like, my goodness, this woman really, really works so hard. But it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Let's start with the Alliance for National Transformation political party. It was birthed in 2019, and now it's 4 years old. Is this political party growing? Let's start there, politically.
Yes, thank you, Solomon. The Alliance for National Transformation is growing. Of course, in organizational development, 4 years is not a lot of time. If the context is very good, then you expect the organization to really be very active. If the context is challenging, then you know it's struggling but pushing on. And I think that is where we are at the ANT. We are growing. We've grown in the fact that we are now recognizable in this country. The ANT is no longer a stranger. At least you can find people who know there is a political party called the Alliance for National Transformation. You'll also find Ugandans who contested on the party ticket. You'll also find leaders who are actually in office on the basis of the Alliance for National Transformation. And also in terms of political engagements in this country, we are notable. You can find us in spaces where politics is being discussed, topical conversations. And so to that extent, we are growing. In terms of our
Membership.
Our membership, maybe before membership, our commitment, the thing that we really want to see, the structural formation of the party. We are not very established. We are still at coordination levels. Coordination levels are simply interim. They are meant to drive the party to the substantive organization. And where we are now is just community engagements and setting up coordination points in villages and sub-counties. Of course, we have the coordination point, which I lead at the national. In terms of membership, our constitution provides for membership which is paid up. So those that are card carrying, they pay 3,000 shillings to become members. And then there are those who are supporters. So we register both. And the membership is still small, but we are happy that it is growing bit by bit. Whenever we interact with the community, those that commit buy the membership cards, they get members, and so we know whether there are 2, whether there are 10, we know that there is an increase in the membership. What I can't tell you now is how many there are, because our documentation system is still analog. So we take registers and cards to the village and we enter, and then we get them to be fed into the system.
Yeah. The ANT is largely buttressed on structures, grassroots structures is what I have heard the former head, and now you also talk about on many political grounds. has now the party been grounded on those structures that you always preach to us?
It is the ideal. It is what we are working towards. It is what I think it's going to be a work in progress through and through the life of the ANT. But what is important is that let the structures be established everywhere in the country. They can't all be established at once. They will be established as we go along. That is one. Two, the other thing about those structures is that we hope we can use them for the activities that the party is going to engage in, whether in terms of elections, then it will be anchored. Vote protection, campaigns, whatever will be anchored. If it is fundraising, it will also be anchored on those structures. If it is activism, if we choose to engage in activism, then it will also be anchored on those structures. So basically to us, the absence, without those structures, then there is no political party. And that's why we are so passionate about it, about putting together those.
But have they paid off?
I can't say no, because we are working on it. So we have them. You can now go to almost all sub-counties of this country and you find somebody who links the ANT, who coordinates the community on the ground and links the ANT in that level with the ANT at national level. We are happy about that so far, but we would like to see more. And that's where the paying off hasn't really come to fruition. So we would like to see more of that. We would really like to grow very solid structures.
Yeah, the reason why I asked this is because you did not send any member of parliament to parliament. No, you don't have any MP in the House from the Alliance for National Transformation political party. So we wondered, okay, there are other political parties that are younger, but they have so many MPs in the House. And that, in a way, questioned whether the party was dead on arrival.
Well, a number of parameters could be used to assess our performance. I think that question speaks to our overall performance in the last election, but also speaks to the context, the political context in Uganda. We don't have members of parliament, not because we don't want them to be there. We actually wanted them to be there.
So you didn't have the political support?
So we fielded them. I know that we fielded a candidate in Ginger East who still up to today has DR forms that give him the total, which is higher than the one who was declared. Now, you don't blame that on ANT. We also have a candidate who we fielded in Hoima, one of the municipality seats, similar situation. Now, you don't blame that on us. Perhaps the system, I don't know how it operates, that even a person with fewer votes can be declared. We try to challenge this in courts. You know the court system in Uganda. They do what pleases them at times. We have candidates who are very promising. And then you wake up one morning, we had a candidate in, I think it was Madi Okolo, a lady called Gloria. And then from nowhere, they said that disqualified her. And then so all those dynamics come into play. Then there are, of course, the inevitable. Some people will lose, some people will win, some people. But at least we had hoped that, and we have evidence that in those 2 or 3 of them, we would have had members of parliament. But as it were, we don't have them. We have a local government, which we lead, the Terego District Local Government. We're able to get an LC5 chair. We also have sub-counties, district councillors, and town council chairpersons. So we are not a briefcase party, so to say. We are actively engaged. Given that we chair a district, it means we are in charge of public resources in this country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the reason really why I asked that is that, look, let's look at the big wigs within the Alliance for National Transformation. The Honorable Alice Alaso, you were a big name in Soroti, and indeed, when you're under the Front for Democratic Change, you won these elections. You won Soroti District, you won Serere District, you were a vibrant name. The Honorable Paul Mwiru was a big name in his constituency. the Honorable Karuhanga Gerard was a big name in his constituency, and all of you failed in the previous elections. And do you regret leaving the FDC as a politician to join the Alliance for National Transformation?
Never, never, never. I think personally, let me not talk for the others, but I know their professed view. We are some of the happiest batch of politicians around town, out of the FDC. Where the FDC is, where it was then and where it is now is a matter for the FDC. But we are the ANT, and we don't even want to attribute anything that happens in our political lives to, for instance, leaving FDC. In 2016, I contested, and the returning officer then of Serere would read something, give me 0-0, when I have tallied in that polling station 500 votes. And it went on and went on until we reached court, and even court asked her, Madam, you declared over 18,000 votes excess. Where did you get this from? She said she didn't know. So that had nothing. And at that time, even I had contested, I think, as FDC. But I still lost. So you can't even bring in the FDC dynamics onto the ANT dynamics. I have said that it has been more about the context, the political context we are in. It is deeply traumatizing. It's disheartening to see the magnitude of fraud in our elections. It's horrible. Sometimes you need to be there. Sometimes I think the media flees for it is live. Like the by-election we had in Serere. I went to the district headquarters and I kept telling the media, let's go to the field. Things are happening. And I could see people glued to their cameras, literally terrified. But things that happen out there, somebody has to determine whether you become member of parliament or not. And Solomon, you said that, and rightly so, you're part of my political journey in the Parliament of Uganda. That uncompromising stand is something some of these guys cannot stand.
All right, we'll get to that shortly. The Alliance for National Transformation political party believes in clean politics, quote unquote. Politics of reason, politics of debate, politics, clean politics. When you listen to the messaging that comes from you and all other party members. And some have argued that that clean politics cannot work in this country. And perhaps explains why some have said that Alliance for National Transformation is on a slow takeoff politically in this country.
They could be right in part that we are on a slow takeoff, but they are totally wrong to think that Uganda cannot deserve something good. This is one of the best pieces on planet Earth that God created. Solomon, you've been in and out of this country. I don't think there is any other country as beautiful as this country called Uganda. I haven't seen a country with such diversity, such brilliant young people, innovating here and there, hustling all over the place. They deserve better. The problem with that argument is the refusal to connect politics and the challenges we face as a country. Because the moment we make that link to know that the economy is doing badly because the politics is ugly, to know that our human rights situation is terrible because political leadership is terrible, the day we make that link, Ugandans will know that the way to go is the Alliance for National Transformation. Because the moment you have clean leadership, then you will not have thieves in charge of the treasury. You will not have people stealing your drugs and then ordinary Ugandans dying in hospitals for lack of drugs. If Ugandans go to know that, they would be running to support the prospects for clean leadership, because that is the only solution that will sort out this country.
Well, I hope you can be able to win many hearts onto that trajectory. Let's talk about the issue of, you were recently a candidate in the Serere County by-election. What was your experience like in participating in that election? And what does it speak to our electoral process?
I'm laughing. I think it was leave the outcome alone. I am so happy that I participated in that by-election. Many people thought, why are you going there? It's already messed up. These people will just come down on you. But I'm so grateful to God that I went to the Serere by-election because it really exposed the rot. I had been part of, personally, participated in over 6 elections, won 3. I had lost 2. Actually, one was stolen from me in the Tally Center, the one of 2016. I'm not sure about 2021. I don't know whether I lost it or won it. I am not sure about that one. It didn't leave me sulking. So then this other one of the by-election came in. I went there with that very stable mind that I really want to participate. And I will forever be grateful to the people of Serere because they showed me a lot of support in that election. But what happened in Serere is unbelievable. That you can have, I also chaired the select committee when I was in parliament around 2004, 2003, 2004. I chaired the select committee on the humanitarian situation in Acholi, Lango, and Teso. And that was at the peak of the Konyi incursion, Konyi war in northern Uganda. So to get me and my committee to those villages, we had to have such a huge army presence. These long lorries, full of soldiers, hundreds, APCs and what. That is exactly what played out in Serere. I started wondering, has Konyi come back to Uganda? Does he have a base in Serere? That is what we saw 2 days to elections. And then on polling day, by 7 o'clock, my polling agents had been bought off. A lot of voting had already taken place. The Electoral Commission was stealing their own election in Serere by 7 o'clock.
What do you mean?
Because by the time a registrar comes with a vehicle labeled Mubende district or Manafa district, those are some of the vehicles I saw. And they actually did mayhem in Serere. So they come to a place, they set it up before even 7 o'clock, they sit there, they take their own ballot papers, they stuff them, and they drive away and they chase my observers. By the time they do that, isn't that the Electoral Commission cheating, stealing their own election? 7, 8 o'clock, that segment was done. I start running around trying to change polling agents, and the presiding officers refuse. They say, no, we are not changing polling agents. How do you refuse? I mean, which football is this? They call the team, what they call them, the coach or the whatever, the manager of the team has every right to substitute their players at any one point in the game. And so I go there trying to substitute presiding polling officials, my own, which the law mandates me to put there, and you refuse substitution. And I end up with people, you compromise for a whole day. By 10, 11, they had signed DR forms. By midday...
Your own people? So your own people were compromised? Completely.
The Electoral Commission stole their own election. By 11, midday, now the NRM, because the NRM had 3 candidates in Serere. The first one, I think, is the one who was closely connected to the Electoral Commission, who won in the morning. The second one was the official NRM candidate, and the other one was another independent. By the time the official NRM candidate and Dr. Tanga, they realized that things needed to either be doctored or they needed to play their game also. They go to a polling station, put everybody, 50 soldiers, put everybody, including the presiding officer, at gunpoint. They take away all their phones, and then they force them, they get their team to tick the ballot papers, they are unused, get the presiding officer, he stuffs them in. They pick these voters who are lining up, stand up, and then give them money, hand back their phones, run away. They did that in over 20 polling stations.
Do you have evidence to this?
I don't even need additional evidence. Justice Diabakama, he was my witness. He is my witness. He saw it with naked eyes. He had to cancel another over 10 polling stations. The mayhem that took place in Serere had never taken place anywhere. And that's why I had a quarrel with the media. They got too terrified. They couldn't go with us to the field. They remained there in the tally center. I said, you're waiting for results here. Things are happening in the field. So Serere for me was the epitome of militarization, electoral fraud, and so on and so forth. And it just speaks to the political will to handle or to allow for free and fair elections in this country. Because the moment there is no political will, you can never get a free and a fair result, and you leave people discontented.
You've talked about monetization of politics, you've talked about militarization of politics, and how that affects the electoral process. How can that be changed? What you went through, how can we have a reversal or a change, especially as we build up to 2026? Because very soon the Electoral Commission will unveil its strategic plan and roadmap. And before you know it, the elections will be here. We'll start talking about electoral reforms, we'll start talking about elections. What can we do differently as we build up to the elections to have a better election come 2026?
I doubt that anyone in this country has the capacity to cause a reversal of that trend. What went wrong is the lack of political will to have a free, fair, and competitive process. And it started right from the presidency. And by the time Parliament removed the presidential term limits and also removed the presidential age limit, we sent this country on a live presidency path. And what is happening in Uganda now is that everything is being done to ensure the survival, political survival of the system that supports President Museveni and whatever time he wants to run this country. So you find that the actors at the lower levels, whether in the police, whether in the military, whether local politicians, they will do everything to create an impression that there is no challenge to President Museveni's power anywhere, as long as they decide it to be. They will declare the wrong result, they will manipulate the process, and unfortunately, President Museveni has never come out to condemn them.
Well, he did recently.
Oh, no, he didn't.
He recently came out and wrote a letter against electoral fraud and talked about, I'm sure you had the letter, and he also came out on the Oyam by-elections and the previous by-election. And he spoke about people who are involved in election malpractice. He called it treason in his letters that I'm sure you've all seen.
Solomon, I've seen those letters. When you read from President Museveni, it is when the system, the fraud has eaten into his house. When we were growing up in Teso, there used to be these old men who bring juju or witchcraft home for killing neighbors and their cows. Then when it begins to kill them and kill their children, then they go around, people come and help me remove this thing. So whenever President Museveni writes, it is because it is a personal injury to the NRM. That's what happened in Bukedea. That man, Mr. Magoro, whose dress was torn, who was in the news, he was also an NRM independent. So I think it hurts from within. But tell me, when people were killed from Serere, did he say anything? People were killed. Pregnant mothers were beaten in Serere. The army led by General Angina operated in Serere and did mayhem. Did anybody say anything? The army took over the elections in Ntungamo of Honorable Gerald Karuhanga. Nothing was said. A wrong candidate was declared in Jinja East by one senior policeman who is no longer alive. So you don't blame them. They have gone to rest. But anyhow, he declared the wrong country. He caused the declaration of a person who had not won in Ginger East. Did anything? We didn't hear anything. So when we say he has not spoken to this country. Two, nobody has been prosecuted. Have you seen any prosecutions against those who perpetuate fraud? They don't. They don't. And let me tell you, it's a recipe for instability in this country.
Flash a light into the 2026 general elections. And what do you see? And what can we do better to have a better elections? And starting to rethink the aspect of electoral reforms, our electoral laws, so that we start early in time to discuss them and table them, and we have a change in an election that you've always called fraudulent, especially this one that you come from. What can we do as a country to do better in the next elections?
You asked me a very difficult question. It is difficult because I'm trying to imagine who we are. Who are we? Me and you, Solomon, and who? Who can do better in this country? That's my problem. Until I understand who we are, not even the Electoral Commission. Who are we who can do a better election in this country? If we don't unpack that, we are just playing with ourselves. We have no answers. It is beyond reach to have a free and a fair election. We will get into an election. Those who are lucky, the 1 or 2 or 10 who may slide past the hurdles, then we have them as the political opposition representatives in the country. Those who will get blocked, they will be blocked. Because until we answer the question of the political will to ensure free and fair elections and to address the future of political stability in this country, nothing. The Electoral Commission is superintended over by one of the actors. I mean, if the chairperson of the EC and the commissioners are appointed by a president who is one of the actors, do you trust them to referee this match impartially? I doubt that they can do it. And I always have problems when people talk about laws. I think just thoughts, because I haven't read or documented or verified this. But just my thoughts on this matter. We may be one of the countries with a lot of laws, really. Too much legislation flying around. We will legislate on this, legislate on that, legislate on the other. But you see, it is not an end in itself to have a blueprint written there and expect people who are not law-abiding to uphold the laws you put in place. You get people who have no respect for the rule of law in this country, and you expect them. Okay, let's go to electoral laws in Uganda. One of the pieces is that, if I recall very well, arms are not supposed to be in polling stations. Let's paraphrase. You are not going to walk around with a gun inside the polling station. So, and that's the law. But that's what they did. They do it in Serere, they did it in Bukedia, they did it in Kasese, they did it everywhere. Armed men, real armed men walking around. So is it a question of another law? It is not the law. It is about those people who command these armed men to drive them out of the polling station to begin to respect the law. Right. So it's not about more laws.
So you don't think that we need electoral reforms?
Reforms anchored on what?
On the law.
No, we have enough laws. Let's even begin respecting the ones that we have.
I understand. Let's talk about the independence of the Electoral Commission, which you highlighted a little bit there. Don't you think that we need to amend that law to really call for an independent Electoral Commission, independent of the state, or independent of what you have described to us right now, that the president actually superintends over it?
Well, I was in Parliament at the time. The Electoral Commission Act came up again for amendment, and our argument was more or less the same. Do you know what the executive did? The executive brought an amendment, said now we amend the name. Do you know that body is called independent?
Yeah.
It is already called independent, but does it have independence?
But you and I remember that so many times the Honorable Rebecca Kadaga invited government to table these laws in time. Parliament at that time did not have enough time to debate them because they came in very late.
I have no problem with the debate. The Supreme Court directed Parliament even to push some of those and clear some of those issues by law that had come up in the previous
2 years to the election.
2 years to the elections and was not honored. That is a formality. It can be honored. I am bringing this addition of the name independent because even when we argued for independence, we said, okay, if it is independence you want, you put the word independent. That compromised the body that runs the elections in Uganda. That compromised the body whose agents, district registrars, kill their own elections is called Independent Electoral Commission. So the problem is not in the nomenclature. The problem is not even in the law. The problem is whether there is a will in the political leadership of Uganda to ensure that laws are implemented, adhered to, and their outcome is respected. That is the problem. It is about who will bell the cat.
And that political will, in your view, is not there?
Completely. It's not there. Unfortunately for Uganda.
So what do we do then moving forward?
So what we then do moving forward is
if we want a clean election, okay. We've talked about the independence of the Electoral Commission. We've talked about the militarization of our politics, which you're really up against, and you say there must be an overhaul. We've talked about the monetization of our politics. That is very central, and you saw it in the previous elections, even in the Syria elections, you say so. So what can we do now to actually have a better election come 2026?
So I hold the view that what we need to change the direction this country is taking. Many people disagree with me. I know my friends in civil society, I know my friends in political parties disagree with this. I keep saying that the only person who holds, if it is in human beings now, because I know God holds it all and He can turn things around before we even know. But in terms of human beings around town, the only person whom we can speak to and speak to his conscience and tell him if it doesn't stop the downward trend in this country is headed for bad times, is President Museveni. Unfortunately or fortunately, you want it or you don't want. If he turned around and said, Ugandans, I have reached 75 plus years. Let us clean it up. Whatever got messed up. Let us start on a clean slate. In these next 2 years, I am going to work towards the reforms. I would like to retire as an old man and give you a stable country. Do you know that very day we begin working towards stability? So I am still one of those human beings who talks to President Museveni in my thoughts saying, I wish he could understand that his legacy is dependent on what he decides now, even the legacy of his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Either he takes it up to stabilize the country, empower institutions, allow them to work, or he continues like that down the slope and the country will crash. Because it's not going to be Uganda alone. This culture of a strongman syndrome, we've seen it everywhere. You've seen it, Sudan is burning. Wasn't there a strong man called Bashir? It burned. Libya has disappeared. It is here and there. Wasn't there a strong man? Perhaps the most strong man we had around this continent? Haven't we seen issues of the strong man? Zimbabwe is picking up its ruins. Haven't we seen issues of the strong man here and there? And so, and their legacy is the same. Either they reinvent themselves quickly or they go down with the country. The rest are not. They go by orders. Parliament, judiciary, all those institutions have been totally weakened. They would like to work, but who are you working against the odds? This state capture. So for me, we appeal to the president who still holds the state. Secondly, we continue as citizens to agitate that we would like to see a better Uganda for us and for our children's children. So, thirdly, and very importantly, and nobody can stop this, pray for our country.
So you still think that the pivot of all this is President Museveni?
Yes, he is.
I thought that the power belongs to the people.
Which people? People who don't even have food, people whose iron sheets are stolen. Which power? People on whom leaders are imposed. Which people? Which power do they have? The power was taken away. The state was captured long ago. That's why you find gun-wielding men all over the place. They have no military identification, but they are walking around. And they are more powerful than your district police commander. So which people have the power in this country? They don't have. There is state capture.
Let's talk about transition of power. There's so many forces that are beginning to crop up, because of that vacuum. It's time for young people. So we have the Mohozi movement, you have, the political parties, you have the National Unity Platform, you have the Alliance for National Transformation, the NRM, fighting also within each other. Political transition in this country. What are your fears?
Well, just before I even express my fears, I hope that those who are in charge are able to sense, or at least they understand, that it is an inherent desire of human beings to transit from one level to another. And is a thing they cannot stop. They can only delay it, they can only divert it, but human beings are like water flowing with a torrent, with a force down the slope. If you try to block here, they'll try this. If they try this, try this. So all those manifestations speak to the need for change in this country. And the sooner those that are in power realize, the better. Now, the thing is really about managing the transition. Because countries have transited very well, even from some dictators. You can have a bad regime, but if it facilitates the transition process, then people pick up the reins and continue and stabilize their country. But also, as I said earlier, there are situations where the transition has been managed badly, or forced on those that are in power, and then you end up with a scattered country. And in the history of Uganda, we have never had a peaceful transition. Everybody who entered the State House was bombed out of it, one way or the other. And normally, when they bomb you out, or when the leader has to flee, then, there's that spillover effect. There's a lot of instability in the country. Now, that's not what we want for our country. We would like to move away from the Museveni regime and continue making reforms, transforming our society, and, whatever we've built now, whether it is small, whether we are not happy, whether it is, whatever it is now, we would like to have that one maintained, and then we would like to continue from there. And that's where we, at the Alliance for National Transformation, spend a lot of time. We spend our time building scenarios. We spend our time thinking through the possibility of a qualitative change and a peaceful transition. Our understanding is that if all stakeholders could be called to a discussion, and we all develop a way forward that is agreeable to this country, we believe that there can be a peaceful transition. We believe that if room is created for a free and fair election, then those who have thought qualitatively can go beyond just removing President Museveni and his system and then taking the country further in terms of qualitative change. Of course, you say that people don't think like that. But what is the point of today being, just changing, and then tomorrow morning you even get a worse dictatorship? You talked about the Muhoozi project. Incidentally, apart from what looks like trying to turn Uganda into a monarchy, we really wouldn't have problems with that. What we have as a problem with the Muhoozi project is that we would like General Muhoozi, who in his own right could actually run for presidency, to come out of that uniform and stop using state resources. And retire and be like any one of us, so that now, Solomon, I can come here, you sit him there and sit me here, and then we begin to engage on the destiny of this country. I'd like to hear his views, but I can't sit here. He sits there, pistols all over, guns all over. I cannot. So our argument, our call on the proponents of the Muhoozi project is first get out of the army, be ordinary, let's deal with politics without the army. The army belongs to all of us.
Yeah, thanks a lot. As we conclude on this, you have a column that you write in the dailies, and you've been focusing a little bit on Parliament, and you've, in many of them, asked them to be more articulate on issues and responsible. Your view on this Parliament and its performance?
Well, I just try to do the little I can, see if I can reawaken conscience. And as I had said, institutions have been terribly weakened. So our parliament, not only this one, even the previous parliaments and parliaments going back, but now it gets worse. Every parliament is weaker than the one that existed before it, suffering from institutional decay. That is the challenge we have, not only for parliament, for judiciary, for police, for any institution in the country. So, but I think that this parliament could do certain things because they are the ones we have. We don't have another parliament. Whether how they were elected or whatever, it's no longer the issue because they are there. So they could do certain things that favor the people of Uganda if they stood firm and executed their representative and their legislative mandate. But it would look like a majority of them just sit back and watch. And so my argument to them is that please try to read. Please try to prioritize the voters. Please try to hold the government accountable. Even if government rejects your views at the end of the day, it will be on record that you called them to order, that you didn't rescind your positions. Look at the issues of giving money to Munyonyo. How do you review that point? And you allocate money to Munyonyo or to Lubowa, a non-existent hospital, and yet intern doctors are not being given money to treat your own parents, your own grandmothers in your own constituencies. That is unacceptable. So all I do in that column is really to try to call them, to challenge them to act. And I hope that reading that little piece of mine, maybe some of them will do something.
All right. Your conclusion.
Well, I first to really thank you and also urge Ugandans, if you believe in a better and a more qualitative change for this country, I'd like to encourage you to join the Alliance for National Transformation. It is the only way to go. We haven't found any other formula because changing from one person to another, if they don't have values that will help you, will not cause a different impact. But also more importantly, pray for our country, Uganda.
Thank you. The Honorable Alice Alaso, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, I have been speaking with the Honorable Alice Alaso. The Honorable Alice Alaso is the National Coordinator for the Alliance for National Transformation Political Party. She is also a politician and someone I really regard highly. I'm Solomon Serwanja, and this is The Hard Questions.